Vikings versus Falcons, GMG pregame show.
Good morning, Callahan is back with your GMG pregame show. And this week we have the 0-5 Atlanta Falcons coming to U.S. Bank to play the 1-4 Minnesota Vikings. But first, before we talk about Vikings and Falcons, let's talk about how Drew is doing. Drew, how are you?
Doing good. Ready to talk about another big Viking game.
Hey,
How'd that sound?
and there's Ryno. Ryno, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great. We had several moral victories today, so I'm feeling great and we're ready to roll.
And that is as we record on Wednesday for the Saturday release. That's good. And Ted, how you doing, buddy?
Boys, if I was any better, I'd be against the law. Let's light this candle. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right.
That was a good huddle right there, man. Actually, it was quiet.
We're coming off a very frustrating defeat. The only person that we haven't heard from yet on that, where the Seattle Seahawks had Russell Wilson drive the ball down at the end of the game and then throw a touchdown for a win, is Ryno. Ryno, have you got any brief and short thoughts on that wonderful game?
Well, I mean, it's really everything's been said to this point. I mean, going forward on that fourth down was the right call. I think the play was suspect because, you literally run behind the worst offensive lineman in the NFL, ranking both in pass and run blocking right now. I agreed with going for it. The call was terrible, put it that way. But still, even after that, we still had like a 97, 98% chance of winning the game. And, of course, Russell Wilson being HOF level quarterback, leads him down, and that's all there is to it. I mean, there was positives to the game. The defense looked really good first half. We held Wilson to 44 yards passing in the first half. And we didn't give up 200 and some yards rushing this time, which is, a major accomplishment from what we did. But at the end of the day, we still lost, and there's still a lot of shit we got to fix, but we're on to Atlanta.
Yes, we are. And speaking of Atlanta, their head coach got fired last week after they lost again. They now have an interim head coach. Who is that, Drew?
Raheem Morris.
Do you think he's going to be any good?
No. Not until he gets. Now, you know what? He's proven as a proven assistant in this league, and I think wasn't he coach at Tampa Bay for a while?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 years.
He does have a lot of experience. He's a good football guy. I'm going to say they're going to be better off with him in the long run, but it's not so far as the rest of the season. I don't think so. Atlanta's a terrible team. They had a lot of holes, a lot of positions to fill. So it's a tough call for him. So no, but not really on his deal. It's not his problem.
Ted, do you see the Falcons motivated or more motivated this week since they lost their coach?
I see the Falcons coming out one of two ways. I think they're going to come out and they're going to really want to play well for Raheem Morris and be professionals and show a little pride and all that cliche, stereotypical stuff. And they've played good football. I mean, football games were 58 minutes long. I think the Falcons would be undefeated, or close to it. I mean, they have blown two or three huge leads, I think.
Right.
Yeah, to the Bears, it was right at the end, I know, and then
yeah,
I think the first week was the same too.
So there's 0-5 what the Falcons are, and then there's just the putrid 0-5 what the Jets are. So maybe a change of a head coach with a new attitude or input or a way of looking at things might be the thing that the Falcons needed to kind of kickstart things and rip off a few wins, or they're just going to pack it in and we got our coach fired and now it's just waiting to play out the string so we can get some tee times in the spring or whatever the case may be. I can go either way. I've seen teams go both directions. I think the Falcons have the talent to be able to play well for Raheem Morris and for Vikings fans that think this is just going to be a cakewalk of a game, I would caution against that belief.
That's what I was getting at. We can't take this game lightly at all because not the way the Vikings are playing.
I mean, the Vikings choked away a late lead. It wasn't as big as the Falcons, but the Vikings are every bit as bad at critical moments of games this year than the Falcons are. It's the stereotypical movable force against the resistible object. A resistible force against the movable object. Whatever. Sounds like that's a saying, like that's the way my dad would have screwed up that saying. So yeah, resistible force against the movable object. I don't know. Yeah, I can go either way with this game on how the Falcons are going to come out playing. I got a good idea how the Vikings are going to play.
It's two losing cultures clashing with each other. That's what it feels like to me. Neither team really they've snatching defeat right out of the jaws of victory. They both find ways to lose. So neither of them are playing very well.
It could boil down to who can find the most creative way to blow the game. Is how it really.
Yeah.
Speaking of Don, it would have been funny to watch him watch this season. He would have thrown his beer through your TV.
My dad would have been. What is Mike Zimmer doing? Teddy? What is he doing? Why is he still our head coach? The Vikings cannot rush the quarterback. My entire life, they have not been able to rush the quarterback. Dad, they had the purple people eaters. Okay, well, they were pretty good, but they cannot rush the quarterback.
After that Don Glover story, Drew, what numbers do we have for this week?
Really what jumps out at me is the Vikings are, believe it or not, they're the fourth best team at rushing the football in the NFL. They rush the ball for 161 yards a game, fourth best. And my question to you folks is, if Dalvin Cook can't go, do we maintain the 160 a game with Madison? Are they going to be able to keep that up? With he and Boone.
What's Atlanta's rushing defense?
Their rushing defense is 14th. Overall, Atlanta's 31st in the league in overall defense, 14th against the run. So they're better against the run than they are. They're second to last overall, and they're second to last in pass defense, but their run defense is 14th, which is middle of the pack. They give up 110 a game, and we rush for 160. So I guess the mid-row point would probably be 130, 135 or something. I don't know. But without Cook in there, can the Vikings keep that 160 average?
No.
Yeah, okay. I don't know that it'll be 160. I mean, we should be able to go 110 to 120, 125 somewhere in there. I mean, Madison had a hell of a game Sunday night, and a couple times Boone was in there. He ripped off a couple of pretty good runs too. And I mean, they were actually doing better than Cook was before Cook got hurt. But do you go committee now that Cook's out, or you just have Madison as your regular guy like you would be the Cook replacement, and then sub in the other guys whenever? But do you go full committee?
No, Madison's the
go-to.
I think
Madison's your number one. But But I mean, if Boone starts ripping off some pretty good runs and stuff, then you adjust the workload accordingly. I'd go with a hot hand kind of more than anything else, I think.
And I do believe they'll keep up with that 160 yards rushing.
You do? Okay.
Of course you do.
I do. They have their interior starting defensive guy, Marlon Davidson.
Marlon Davidson, yeah, he's out with COVID.
He's now on the COVID IR. He wasn't anything great or special looking at his grades, but
you're forgetting about somebody.
Middle.
Somebody I found in my notes, going through notes this morning, somebody you got to keep track of is Big Grady Jarrett. He's got the big boy in the middle. He's got 2.5 sacks this season. He's really disruptive in the center of their D-line. And I know he's probably licking his chops looking at our guard setup for what he can get done. Grady Jarrett is a handful on the defense. That's probably the guy you got, in my opinion, you'd have to keep track of the most.
He is the second highest rated player on that defense.
He's really good. He's a really good player.
Overall score 77.
To me, he's the guy you got to account for it on that D line if you want to run the ball in the gut. So that, I mean, Atlanta could still hurt you. They got Julio Jones, they got Hurst, they got Ridley, Russell Gage. I mean, I'm probably missing a couple guys in there, but they still got prolific.
Matt Ryan's not a bad
core.
Quarterback either.
Well, Matt Ryan's never beaten Zimmer. He's 0-4. Matt Ryan's lifetime quarterback rating against the Vikings is 81.6, I believe it is. And out of the 4 times Matt Ryan has played the Vikings, he's thrown at least 2 interceptions in 3 of those 4 games. So he hasn't particularly – I mean, I'm not taking away that he's a good quarterback,
right? But
I'm just throwing out numbers that he's done against the Vikings the last few times he's played them.
Sort of like Russell Wilson always beating the Vikings. Vikings have always beat Matt Ryan.
I would argue and Drew, very good knowledge about Matt Ryan not ever beating Mike Zimmer. I think though, when you look at some of those defenses Mike Zimmer had, I think I'd have to go back and look. I think they played the Vikings in 2014, which was Zimmer's first year, so that could have been a new defense, new look. I don't know, whatever. But those other games, those Vikings defenses were a lot different than what this Vikings defense looks like. I mean, they had a true shutdown corner in Xavier Rhodes, and they put him on Julio Jones, and Julio Jones has done squadouche against the Vikings under Mike Zimmer.
Right.
I remember that there was a game or two there. I know that Julio got extremely frustrated. You could tell during the game that he was getting, throwing his hands up and stuff on the field. You could tell he was frustrated as hell. But,
and that
we don't have
Ted
that
brings
now.
up a good point. The defenses were all different than what we got going on this year.
And there's no shutdown corner. There's, I don't know. I mean, the Vikings could very easily win this game. I'm not saying they couldn't, but I wouldn't look at Matt Ryan's past history against previous iterations of Mike Zimmer's defense and get this false sense of security, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
And that's a great point. And to add on to top of that, I think this is the best receiving core Atlanta has had in that spread of 4 games also.
Yeah. They've had Julio, but Calvin Ridley is legit. Yeah.
They got a great receiving core to throw their tight end, and they got Gurley. They got weapons. And you guys have all seen Matt Ryan in a groove. You guys have seen him in games when he gets going. He's one of the best in the league at stacking cheese, man. That guy's good.
And they've also done a really good job of pressuring Matt Ryan too in all those games. I would bet he'd been sacked at least 3 times and pressured a lot more in all of those previous contests. And the Vikings defense, other than the Seattle game, they really have not been able to generate
a whole lot of pressure.
Much pressure at all.
I think last year we were talking average pressures per game was around like 14 or 17 pressures per game by our defense. We're looking now
7 or 8 now.
10. Yeah.
10.
See, that's not good. That's like 2 a quarter, man.
Yeah, it's
well, they got Russell Wilson is about 50 times more mobile than Matt Ryan, and they got to him 4 times. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they can do – Matt Ryan's not going to run on you. He's a pocket guy back there. But, you know, a lot of times when you get to Russell Wilson, he's actually the one that runs to you. He causes the sack. So it might be a little misleading to say we got to Russell Wilson 4 times, so we're going to get to Matt Ryan more. I hope they can generate some kind of a pass pressure because it's all kind of rides on that, you know.
Well, I'd love
but
to
Atlanta,
see James Lynch play a little bit more because he was in there for 8 snaps and he had 1 pressure and a sack.
Yeah, why was he only in there for 8 plays? That still baffles me. I mean,
well, I think he went in there because I think Jaleel got hurt.
Got to break in the rookie slowly, man.
Jaleel.
Well, yeah, you can't rush these things. That's true.
Jaleel is a do not practice today with a back injury. And that may be why. Also, news, if you hadn't heard, the Vikings released Hercules Mataafa this week.
Has there been anything? He's got to clear waivers, but he'll probably end up back on the practice squad, I would assume, maybe.
Maybe, but he's what, 4 years in?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, and honestly, he's been a disappointment. You know,
right.
They've talked big that he's put on weight, he's making strides, he's this, and then they put him in the game, and you never even hear his name called.
Every year.
So I mean,
yeah.
So I mean,
Hercules. Yeah, no.
I already spent too much time on the show talking about him.
True.
Going over the injuries so far as of Wednesday, we'll update this when it goes out Saturday with everything. The Falcons have quite a few. They got quite a few limited players today at practice. Did not practice Julio Jones with a hamstring and Jalen Hawkins with a concussion. And we know concussions you won't find out usually until about Saturday. Whether they pass protocol. Vikings did not practice today. We have Dalvin Cook. I think it's basically already been said he's not going to play this weekend. KJ Osborne still with the hammy. Holton Hill with his foot. Jaleel Johnson with his back. We had limited on Chris Boyd. Garrett Bradbury for a finger/knee. And C.J. Ham for a shoulder.
Didn't come from blocking, I can tell you that.
Well, he got on that 4th and half yard, he got stood up, and that was the first time.
Fucking real, dude.
He overextended when they ran that fly route with him to the end zone.
Could be.
There's another thing I don't want to hear about anymore. Madison's starting this weekend. I sure hope he knows how to play running back and find the opening. I don't want to hear about that anymore. You know, you get the ball, you get the handoff, you go straight ahead. He doesn't have the vision Cook has. That play never should have been called to hand to the backup running back. So I'm taking Matty off the
hook. Not behind the worst guard in
you know
PFF.
What? Just to put a wrap on that, because we talked about it for so long, maybe let Ted comment on it. I think when they sent that play in, Madison up the middle on the dive play, I think Cousins should have said, screw it, and be insubordinate and just take it himself. And just take it himself and then go to the sidelines and take the heat. If the coach goes, he didn't run my play, he'd say, well, your play was shit. And I took it. That's what I expect my quarterback to do. Take it over
will never
himself.
Do that, though. Cousins will never do that.
Favre would have done it. Elway would have done it. Manning would have done it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Favre would have done that to Chile. That's a stupid play. We're running this instead.
He did that all the time.
Yep.
And I really wish Cousins would have done that. But, Cousins wouldn't. He didn't want to take the PR bashing if he didn't make it. He's more worried about that than he is the game, I guess. So that's going backwards. I want to keep the show going forward. So disregard everything I just said. Let's go back to talking about Hercules Mataafa and Chris Boyd's injured finger, whatever that.
Oh.
So we're down 2 corners again, Ted? Is that what I'm hearing, Ted?
Yeah, but we're going to have the same 3 corners that we had last week, and that's the first time in the season that's happened where we have the same.
So Hill, Gladney, and
Dan Starkler.
Okay. Got their hands full again. Falcons come at you. They're not going to,
What is their passing?
You got to score
offense?
to keep up with the Falcons. They may blow leads, but they can put up points, man. So the Vikings better be on there. The Vikings are moving up offensively now, guys. They were 31st 3 weeks ago. They're now 17th. And I know 17th isn't top 10, but it's better than 30th. Last week, they were 22nd going into the Seahawks game. Now they're 17th. So there's offensively, at least we're trending in the right direction. Defense, we're low 20s on everything. So,
but we were low 30s a couple weeks ago, so we're still. I mean, there's still improvement on the defense.
We're trending upward.
30s. We were 38th total defense.
What does the Falcons' offense look like numbers wise? What is our
12th overall? 12th overall, 17th rushing. They get 114 yards a game. They're the 8th best passing team in the NFL, and they score 24 points a game.
Okay.
And we give up 30 points a game. So it's probably going to be this game could easily be in the 30s again. So they have the 8th best passing offense, and we have the 25th passing defense. So it's pretty obvious how they're going to come at us. Interns, what do you call them, Ted?
The fighting interims?
The fighting interims are probably going to come at us through the air. Zimmer's shut Gurley down every time he's played against him. So,
what's their turnover margin, Drew?
They're -1, believe it or not, which is pretty. Usually teams that are in as bad a shape are like we're +5, so that adds to why we're having the woes that we're having. They are a -1. You know what?
Wait, the Vikings are whoa. The Vikings are +5 in turnover margin?
No, I'm sorry. No. The Vikings are -5, and the Falcons are +1. Yeah, okay, sorry, I got that all. I went dyslexic on that. -5, the Falcons are +1. Here's an interesting little tidbit on the numbers. The Vikings have 24 penalties for 176 yards on the season. The Falcons have 27 penalties, only 3 more penalties than we do, but almost 80 yards more in yardage, which means they are giving up the long, shitty penalties, like the 40-yard pass interference. The real one, that might be why they're blowing leads. They're giving up the penalties they give up are just horribly bad. You throw a 40-yard pass and there's pass interference at the goal line. It's a lot of yardage. Yeah. So there's a big differential in. Yeah, the Vikings have 3 less penalties, but almost 100 yards less in penalties. Yardage.
We don't give up the 40-yard penalties because by that time the wide receivers way past the cornerbacks and.
No, they just jump off sides and give up a defensive holding on 3rd and 15.
Yeah.
So Drew, I wasn't sure if you were going to throw these numbers out here, but everybody, I've seen people say, well, the Vikings can turn it around, and this is still a playoff team, and yada yada yada. And I was looking at some stuff, and the Minnesota Vikings have had 56 drives this year, offensive drives. That they have allowed the opponents have had 54 offensive drives. The Vikings have scored either field goal or touchdown on 39.3% of those drives and turned the ball over on 16% of those drives.
How?
The opponents have scored 55% of the time and only turned the ball over 5% of the time.
Wow, that is better than any number I threw out today.
You want to know why the Vikings are 1-4? That's it right there. That's it right there. They can't stop teams from scoring, and they turn the ball over at 3 times the rate their opponent does. And I'm sorry, but for those of you that think this is a team that's going to rip off
9 wins,
11 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins. If you look at those 2 things right there, you can't even hope to be 500 if you're giving up scores over half the time your defense is on the field. You just aren't. You're a terrible football team. You are a terrible football team.
Good knowledge. It's good numbers right there, man. That's really telling and eye-opening numbers right there.
But we're playing another terrible football team this weekend.
True. You're right.
Yeah,
in normal years, we'd say this is a get-right game, but Atlanta's saying the same thing about us right now. So,
this game's perfect for Mike Zimmer. Think about it. King of the dipshit teams. This is perfect for him to win. He's going to win this game. Ticker tape parade, extension. Look at how good it all is. This is prime for him. This is perfect for Mike Zimmer. These are the games he wins.
yeah.
He beats the bad teams. You can't beat the good teams. King of the bad teams, man.
If he had more Pro Bowl players.
Yeah, but
on the offensive line, it'd be nice.
And we got to remember though that this is the off year. It's the every other year thing. Last year we made the playoffs. This year we miss it. Next year we'll make it again. It's been that way ever since Zimmer's been here.
That is such a loser's
that's
lament,
okay.
man.
That's okay. We should be satisfied with that, according to certain people.
Some people are, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
I know they are.
It's amazing.
I've been having discussions all day about this because I went into a Facebook board with a Cousins meme, pulled the pin through the grenade, and just turned around, walked back out as the explosion happened behind me. But
if you are the type of fan that thinks being good every other year is okay, I don't want you watching this show. Seriously, I don't. Change the channel. Go watch something else.
Well,
because that's unacceptable to me. It's
You
unacceptable.
know what? Hey,
it's like the conversation
better be
we had.
careful. Zimmer better be careful, guys. If he loses to Atlanta, he's not only losing to Atlanta, but there's a bye week the next week. He's priming himself to get the big AX, baby. He's got to win this game.
I'm at the point in my fandom. I mean, and we've been fans, all of us, 30, 40 plus years.
Right.
I'm at the point in my fandom with this team where if they are not a substantial playoff team, and by 5 games, if after 5 games, you know what kind of team you are. And if anybody thinks this is a playoff team and they just need to tweak something here or something there, I'm sorry, they're not. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. And Bob's your uncle, and I'll be the idiot at the end of the year because that's happened before. But after 5 games, I think you got a pretty good idea what kind of football team you have, and this is not a good football team. If they're not going to be a substantial playoff team, are we talking a real
tweak or are we talking a Zimmer tweak?
I want them to be drafting in the top 5 so they have a chance for a true franchise-altering player like Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, somebody. And if but the Vikings always seem to do is they win just enough games to get a decent draft pick, 12, 13, 14, whatever, but far enough back that they can't get that franchise-altering player. And that just aggravates me. Just aggravates me.
Let's play off what Ted just said right there. Let's somebody boot up the schedule real quick, and we'll look at automatics. I consider this weekend an automatic.
Okay,
I consider Sunday an automatic. The Vikings,
okay, so
I consider this a win. They're going to win this game.
Okay. Then
read them the rest.
Then they have the bye. Week 8 at Green Bay. I'm calling that a loss. Week 9, Detroit at home. I'm calling that a loss. Week 10 at Chicago.
Detroit's horrible.
So are we, Dave.
Well, I know that.
It's
just, and Chicago, other than their defense, isn't.
We're not winning in Chicago, Dave.
We're not winning in Chicago.
That does not matter. Zimmer cannot beat Nagy.
We couldn't even win in Chicago with top 5 defenses. How the fuck are we going to win there now? Come on. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, so at Chicago, then week 11, Dallas at home, loss. Week 12, Carolina at home. Teddy Bridgewater.
Dallas isn't winning, and they don't have a quarterback.
I wouldn't consider Dallas.
I'd take Andy Dalton over Kirk Cousins right now, brother.
Andy Dalton.
But I wouldn't necessarily call that an automatic. I was asking for automatics. I don't think that's an automatic win. I think or automatic. Automatic.
One comment on Dallas and Andy Dalton.
Ginger
and tying in with Kirk Cousins. In regular season, since Cousins has been here, he's had the opportunity 19 times in the fourth quarter to lead a game-winning drive. He's got 1. Andy Dalton has played 1 game with Dallas. He has 1 with Dallas.
Well, come on, Ryan. 1-19's not really. Not really.
All right. Okay, so let's go back then. So not a gimme.
Continue,
So Green Bay.
Continue, Ted.
So at Green Bay, not a gimme. At Detroit at home, not a gimme. At Chicago, not a gimme. Dallas, not a gimme. Carolina at home, not a gimme.
Loss.
Jacksonville, that's a winnable game, isn't it? Maybe.
Jacksonville should. Yeah, that's
So right now, up to now, we got Atlanta Sunday. I consider that we should, and Jacksonville. We got 2, and we have 1 win, so we're at 3. We're at 3 right now. Keep going.
Week 14 at Tampa, no. Week 15 Chicago, not a gimme.
No.
And then they close this last 2 games out at New Orleans and at Detroit to end the season.
Yeah, so we have what you would consider 2 more. I'm not going to say easy wins because that we don't say that around here, but it's
winnable games.
Winnable games, yes.
Well, I would consider week 17
that we should feel good going into a good of our chance to win. We'll put it that way.
So we're looking at 3 to 4 wins, Ted. Is that my fair with that?
And I would agree with Dave. Week 17, they'll if they lose at Detroit, there's a good chance they can beat Detroit at home. So, yeah, so 3-13, 4-12,
5-11.
Super Bowl homeboy.
Okay, 5-11. So what we just 3-13 to 5-11. Is that fair? 3-13, 5-11, right in that range.
I would buy that.
Probably, yeah.
So that's probably anywhere between I don't have the records in front of me from last year's draft order. Is that number 6 to number 12? Number 6 to number 15?
Yeah. In there someplace,
right
probably.
10.
Yeah, 5 to 10, somewhere in there.
But I don't think it's going to be 5, but it's.
Well, I mean, you got to look at who's below us, and you got both New York teams. You've got, Atlanta right now. You've got
Jacksonville.
The Jets aren't going to win more than 1 game. The Jets are not going to win more than 1 game. They're going to get the first pick, as far as I see. They're beyond horrible. They have fucking Joe Flacco playing for them. So at 3-13, we're a top 10 pick. That's probably what the record shows every year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the 2020 draft, the Cincinnati Bengals picked first.
I love doing this football. I fucking love football, man. The
Bengals picked first, and their 2019 record was 2-14.
Okay.
Washington, the artist formerly known as the Washington Redskins, picked second, and they were 3-13.
A second? Oh, okay. Well, that's higher than I thought. Okay.
They're another team that's in there.
Third. Detroit picked third. They were 3-12-1.
Okay.
And then 4th and 5th were the Giants and Dolphins. The Giants were 4-12, and the Dolphins were 5-11. So,
wow. Okay. Well,
I don't think it's reasonable to say a top 5 pick.
Yeah, top 5 to 7 pick is not, and realistically, if we had, if we want to, I mean, that puts us in a position where we could jump up to number 1 if we want to go after Trevor Lawrence or something without having to sacrifice.
With what?
Oh, we got our first round pick.
Thank you for those numbers, by the way. Okay. I was way off. Thank you.
Okay. With what, Dave? With whatever the frick it takes to get.
Because we don't have a second round pick.
I don't care if we have to give them our second round pick from 2042. If we have the ammunition to move up and get a goddamn franchise quarterback that we have not had around here in arguably 30 years, if not more, we need to do it.
That's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets tricky. When you're in – what if the teams ahead of you don't need a quarterback? I mean, they've already locked in their franchise guy. Your guy is more likely to be there at 5 or 6. I'm glad Ted just read those numbers because I was thinking 5-11, you're down 12. Drafting 12, I was completely wrong. So even between if we're 3-13 or 5-11, we're probably in top 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Now looking at their draft picks next year, they have 9 picks. They don't have. Dave's right. They don't have a second round pick, and that was what was that for? How
Ngakwe.
Did they deal that?
Unique.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. They've got a first-round pick, a third-round pick, 3 fourth-round picks, 3 fifth-round picks, a sixth, and a seventh. So they could do a 1, next year's 2 fourths, and a fifth. I don't know if they got to move up.
They would have to use next year's in there. Whoever they're trading with would have to.
The Jets tried to sign Cousins when we got him. Let's throw Cousins in on the deal. Cousins in a first-round pick to move up number 1. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, guys, you know what?
People have been looking at the Cousins trade possibilities, right? We know San Francisco and their head coach loves him. But we also know that if he's on the team third day of the league year,
day 3 of the league year, yeah,
his salary gets guaranteed out. If he's not, if he's cut prior to that, we owe $41 million next year. $41 million off the cap is ginormous, especially considering the cap's going to be about $175.
But it's
there is a
45
clause if we keep him past that third day of the league year and then cut him after June 1st, i.e. have the trade in the books all but signed and paperwork sent prior to, say, San Francisco. And I'm using San Francisco just because the coach loves him.
Yeah, but does John Lynch love him? Fuck.
Well, that's the problem with San Francisco. It's whether Lynch does. But that only costs us $10 million, and trade team accepts the rest of his contract, which would only be for a 2-year deal. Right? And as we saw last year, San Francisco was pretty damn good. If it wasn't for, if they could think, hey, if we have this quarterback that can play better, and they think he plays better than Garoppolo, I'm just trying to say, hey, I'll sell him to anybody. I'll give him away.
At this point right now, I would trade Cousins to Garoppolo, or Cousins and Garoppolo straight up. I mean, because this year on the books, Garoppolo is in that $25 million.
I think he's like $27 million next year.
No, but they can cut him, and there's only $4 million in dead cap. So we could run him out at the end of the year, and then if we so chose.
I mean, everybody wants to say because Shanahan worked with him that he loves Cousins.
Shanahan said that.
Yeah.
He said that.
Doesn't mean he wants him as his quarterback. Is he that much better than Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins?
Shanahan wanted to trade for Cousins when they got Garoppolo. And when Lynch traded for Garoppolo instead, I've heard this story from multiple places. They said Shanahan was basically walking around sulking around the office for about 2 weeks because they didn't get the quarterback that he wanted. He wanted Cousins in the worst friggin' way.
And he
all right. Well, we're gonna have to go we're gonna have to go gentleman's bet on it, $20 or something, because I don't think San Francisco wants Kirk Cousins to move forward.
But Shanahan may want him, but Lynch may say
John Lynch. That's he's the buck stops with him. So
you don't know. I'll trade Kirk Cousins for a ham sandwich. It doesn't matter. Just get his numbers.
I know, but
off the books.
you say he loves him, so he's going to make him the quarterback. You know, 20 years ago, I dated a stripper. I loved it for 2 weeks, but I wasn't going to have her be wife of my children. I mean,
so
he doesn't know. I don't know.
But
what do you do with
San Francisco is just one of the possible suitors.
Yeah,
that plays into it.
One of the more likely scenarios.
Drew brought up a good point earlier.
Huh?
I would have thought, not on the show, but when we were talking earlier, that while Cousins was still in Washington, you could have talked yourself into, well, yeah, but it's Washington and they're not a good football team, and you put Kirk Cousins in a good situation, he'll blossom and he'll become an elite quarterback. Well, he was put in a good situation with the Minnesota Vikings coming off the NFC Championship, and they had everything. They had every starter back and the one guy other than their nose tackle, and they upgraded that position with Sheldon Richardson in 2018, and this team flopped to 8-7-1 with no discernible injuries, no significant roster losses, nothing, and this team flopped from 13-3 to 8-7-1. Last year they went 10-6 and had a overtime win, and now they're 1-4. I think the resume for Kirk Cousins has been written, and much like the Vikings record, it is what it is. And I don't see the Vikings getting any return on investment for Kirk Cousins because the whispers that people had about Kirk Cousins before he came to the Vikings are no longer whispers. They're facts.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's from our point of view. But there are coaches out there, and it doesn't matter what sport it is, that say,
Come on, man.
I can fix him. He can be my guy. They do it in
Okay,
baseball. They do it
You're
in
all-
football. They do it in
GM Dave,
hockey.
GM Ryno, GM Ted. You're all GMs. You're all GMs.
We're not
Are you going to try to get Kirk Cousins on your team?
No.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, settled. Done.
I want to get him off my
Settled.
team.
If us three aren't going to do it, we're not regular GMs like you just said. They're certainly not going to want to do it. Cousins isn't a guy you move forward with on your team. I don't think there's any trade leverage with Kirk Cousins anymore because based on what Ted just said, he always had that X factor of he's on the Redskins. Let's get him in a good situation. Can't use that anymore. That's gone.
You know what
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is now? Kirk
Backup.
Cousins he's a bridge quarterback to your quarterback of the future. And whether it's with the Vikings or with another team, that's what Kirk Cousins is. Sorry.
Everybody knows the Vikings are going to try to trade him.
He's the highest paid game manager in the history of the NFL. And he's got an under
Well, and he
500
doesn't
record.
do
They
that
brought
well.
that up earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. He should be
Cousins
the
is
best
Kirk
backup
Cousins.
in the league. Is what he should be.
Well,
I'll
and
compromise
it's-
with you, Dave. I'll compromise with you, David Stefano. I think you're right. I think they can find a trade partner, but on my side, you ain't going to get a plug nickel for that guy.
Don't
Nothing.
care. I don't
And that's
care
fine.
about getting a plug nickel. All we want is to get his
Well, then
money.
just release him. Get rid of him. Release him.
No. The difference is with a trade,
think, yeah.
you move
So
most
I
of the
guess you
money
do care
off the
about a plug
book.
nickel,
You move most of the money off the book. With a
which is a plug nickel.
well, I care about those plug nickels, but if we get a fifth and a seventh or so, I'm happy. Fine. If I get a ham sandwich, I'm fine. If you take most of that money with you, because
Yeah, that's a good point.
because
Yeah.
with that money and a rookie quarterback on a 5-year rookie deal, we can start putting that money elsewhere, and we're no longer in cap hell.
But it seems
Well,
like all the
you
teams
know
got
what-
their guy going forward. Who's
You know
who's
what we are
desperate
here,
like that?
guys? We're in freaking Brock Osweiler and Houston territory, where Houston basically paid Cleveland just to get him the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
True.
Ted Glover, what NFL team is in dire, desperate need for some quarterback help? Most teams have a Minshew. They have a Tua. They have a Burrow. Most teams are moving forward with their guys. Who is left to take over Kirk Cousins?
The Jets.
God, let's see. You've got is Sam Darnold still the guy with the Jets?
But if the Jets
Dolphins
finish
have
first, they got the
Tua.
guy from Clemson.
I think Pittsburgh's going to need a guy because Ben Roethlisberger's old. Cleveland, Baker Mayfield's playing well. Bengals have Burrow. Yeah, you're going. I mean, Denver. Does Denver have a quarterback?
They're playing
That's something
third
you got to take
string.
in. David,
Chargers-
David, that's something you got to take into consideration. The pool is not as big as it was a couple years ago for quarterbacks.
No, but you also have, as Ted alluded to, Roethlisberger can retire. Brady can retire. Breeze can retire.
Okay, there's three.
Rodgers won't.
Well, there's an interesting possibility with Dak Prescott getting hurt. He was on the franchise tag this year. He didn't sign that 5-year contract that they offered him. They could
That's
just
why he
and
was
if,
crying on the cart.
right. And if he comes back and says, still that he still wants $45 million a year, they could look and say, okay, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, you guys are real similar quarterbacks in my opinion. I think that they're a similar style of quarterback. Lean Prescott a little bit, but
Prescott runs more, but that's before
Yeah.
he shattered and destroyed his
Right.
entire ankle.
but so you
Hey,
could be looking at.
McCarthy!
Could you? Are we going to pay $45 million a year to Prescott, or should we go $35 million a year for Cousins for a couple of years while we find the next guy in line? I mean, it's a possibility. I'm not saying it's a likely possibility because it probably isn't, but we're looking at potential landing spots. It's a potential.
And I see Prescott going into next year like Teddy did after his knee injury, where somebody may sign him, but it's going to be, hey, we don't trust the development. He tore everything up in that ankle, so it's going to take a while.
And and it was a compound fracture.
And
on
there's
top
a compound fracture on top of that. That he may have to do what Teddy did and say, "Hey, I'll play for $5 million this year, $20 million next," before he has a chance to get that big salary.
I just think when you factor in the limited amount of teams that need a quarterback as was needed just 2 seasons ago, I think that even diminishes Kirk Cousins' trade value even more, because you don't have the Browns anymore. A lot of teams have gotten their guy to move forward. A lot of them have that were available a couple of years ago or last year or whatever.
Phillip Rivers is
Hey, Mike McCarthy, you just took over the job. We're going to give you Kirk Cousins now. I bet you he's fucking overjoyed to hear that. I mean,
here's another factor with Cousins is he's what,
31.
32 or 33?
31.
Okay,
10
31.
years in, man.
So he's not a guy that a coach can look at and say, well, yeah, he's had kind of his ups and downs, but he's still a young guy and he played on a bad team, and I think I can fix him. Dave, you're right, and I think there's always coaches out there that say they can fix guys, but at some point on a bad team and a good team, 10 years in the league, you've written your biography on who you are as a player in the NFL, and I don't think that's going to change for Cousins. And I agree with you, Dave, that if they're gonna move him, they have to trade him to get a chunk of salary off the books, so they can build pieces around the quarterback of the future or whatever. Yeah. Because if they get rid of Cousins and just by releasing him, well, yeah, you're going to draft a new QB, but he's going to have to wait around for 2 or 3 years before you have any really solid
cash,
good core of players on both sides of the ball around him. So yeah, it's the Vikings are in a hot mess, to be quite honest. And I think, we were talking the day before that the absolute turning point for the Mike Zimmer era was signing Kirk Cousins and then extending Kirk Cousins. The two biggest mistakes I think Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer have made was letting go of Case and Teddy and signing Cousins and then extending Cousins at the end of last year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know their excuse was we needed to cap space. I mean, and granted, we didn't, they didn't know, nobody knew we were going to be the dumpster fire that we are this year. But I mean, looking at it, we'd have been better off letting, we shouldn't have overpaid for guys like Anthony Barr and stuff like that. We would have had the cap space to begin with. We wouldn't have had to worry about restructuring Cousins so that we could do this, that, and the other thing. If we would have let him just play out this year and thank him for his service and let him walk off the merry road, And
it would have been great if Spielman and Zimmer just played out this year, and that was done too. But, and played for the contract.
Yeah.
But
I think most of us were calling for that before it happened.
Yeah, but, we were. And the surprise of extending Cousins was a surprise because we were wanting him to play it out. But they needed that extra money. They got Pierce, right, which they thought was going to be the young replacement for Linval, right? Key to the Zimmer defense is that run-stuffing nose guard.
That's worked out well.
Then COVID, and he's gone. They had Danielle Hunter, the best defensive end in the league. He injures his neck the first week of practice. He's out for the season. And, you have your young corners that we knew were going to take time to develop.
Is this the excuse portion of the show?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Every week. Every fucking week we do the same thing. Every week.
We got to remember to throw it's a weird year and it's COVID in there, so that we got that.
But what I'm saying is, if coach and GM and quarterback were all playing for their contracts this year, do you think we'd have different results than we do now?
No.
But would we next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next year they'd be in a lot better shape.
All three of them would be off the books.
Yeah, because all three of them might be gone by next year anyway.
Yeah.
The way things are going.
And we wouldn't have to worry. We'd have some money.
Yeah.
But now, I get Dave's point, but now by extending them and still possibly getting rid of all three, now you've got financial constraints, especially with Cousins if you can't move him. that you wouldn't have had if you'd have just let them play out, and then you would have freed up what $25 or $30 million in the cap, and that would have gone a long way in solving other problems on the line.
Issues.
You could have signed
a new
two
coach.
guards for that.
Signed
two guards for that. I mean,
top level guard.
Okay, now on the guard topic, I mean, do we have anybody else on this freaking team that can play right guard right now?
No.
I mean, we got to try
Give me a
something.
shot.
Ezra Cleveland.
Give me a shot.
I mean, you drafted him to be a tackle, but you're moving him a guard. I don't know.
Well, now
you got Avion Collins, who was at one point in time during training camp was in the running for the starting left guard spot. Put him at left guard. Put Dozier over at right guard. Do something. I mean, the numbers
Collins
on
isn't even on the team anymore.
They cut him.
He's on the practice squad, isn't he?
He went from in the running to start to get cut.
He's on the
Wasn't
practice
he the
squad.
starter?
I looked at the roster earlier today, and it said he was on
Wait.
the practice squad.
Collins isn't on the team.
He's on the practice squad.
Wasn't he a starter like a month ago?
He was battling
during training camp. Yeah,
training camp. He was battling.
Fucking staff doesn't know whether the sun's in the sky or up their cornhole. They don't know what the fuck.
We get to Ezra Cleveland. My question to you guys is, when do we see Ezra Cleveland?
I don't know.
I mean, we could put Cleveland
in
a
week ago said we're probably going to see him sooner than later.
As what?
As a guard.
Why?
You tell me. Why?
In the second round to be your left tackle. Of the future.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
And then suddenly say, we're going to use him as a guard. He's now our new guard. Why are you wasting a second-round pick on a guard on a development
Why are you asking me? I don't know. I don't know the answers to these questions.
Kind of makes you yearn for the days of Willie Beavers, doesn't it?
But hey,
absolutely not.
But hey, if Hunter and Barr wouldn't have got hurt, Super Bowl.
No.
But Dave, that's
better. But that's no.
Dave, that's a solid point, though. I mean, you draft a guy in the second round. Now, they decided to keep Riley Reif, which I was for, and I think that's turned out to be a good decision.
Yeah, he's the number one tackle per PFF so far this season.
Second rounder should be playing. Second rounder should be playing.
I could argue being your top backup this year, and then with Reif moving on probably next year,
he will
rolling into the starting job. Mm-hmm. I get that. I mean, I would have understood that, but when you draft a guy in the second round to be your left tackle of the future, and then you move him to guard, you're just kind of it makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. You're not now he's getting reps as a guard, not as a tackle. I don't know, man. I just we've talked about the decisions this team has made, and I just don't agree with any of them since the end of 2017. I just don't. Hardly any.
We're forgetting somebody else here too. We got Mike Zimmer's favorite offensive lineman on. He is on the roster. Brett Jones is the roster, and he has played guard. He played guard in Giants for a while.
Mm-hmm. Ryno.
Yes.
Brett Jones is not a real human being. He does not exist. He does not exist. All right. The sooner you accept the truth, Ryno. Accept the truth. He's not around.
I made that comment the other day. The existence of Brett Jones is kind of like the Loch Ness Monster or an intelligent Packers fan. There's rumors of their existence, but there's no proof of it.
I've seen a Sasquatch more in my life than I've seen Brett Jones on a friggin' football field at a bike.
Well, that's true.
At this point, I'd rather have Jeff Spicoli figure out my offensive line. I would. Aloha, Mr. Hand. Figure it out. Because there's like Ted said, it's confusing.
With that, we'll wrap this puppy up. What do you think is going to happen Sunday, Ryno?
I mean, it's going to go one of two ways. I mean, we should come in and, there's no reason why we can't beat Atlanta by 2 touchdowns. But it's going to go one of two ways. We're either going to come in hungover off of that draining loss to Seattle and tie that into Raheem Morris coming in, and teams tend to get a little bit of a bump when stuff like this happens. I could easily see Atlanta coming in and beating us by 14 points too. I mean, in the end, I think we do win this game. I'm going to say 30 to 24 Vikings.
Ted?
The Vikings either win on a game-ending field goal or they lose on a game-ending field goal. I can go either way.
Well, and we know, we studied this week, that opposing kickers are 100% at U.S. Bank this season.
Then they will lose on a game-winning field goal.
Drew, last words.
I got the Vikings 38-17, and I got Cousins throwing 4 touchdowns.
Wow.
Game of skull picks, man. Game of skull.
My numbers have a 21-point Viking win. I think the Vikings take care of business this week. But I have a favor right now. Remember, Ted, we used to do all that bitchin' trivia back last year? We had all those trivia things.
Yeah.
I got one trivia question for you.
All right.
I thought about it like 10 minutes before we came on the air. The Alabama Crimson Tide have had 5 number 1 wide receivers since 2011. Can you name all 5?
Calvin Ridley.
There's one.
No. I can't.
Cool Whip Jones, man. Cool Whip Jones.
Julio with
Jones,
Alabama?
Jerry Jeudy.
3.
Okay.
Henry Ruggs.
4.
Justin Jefferson.
And Justin Jefferson was
was
LSU.
No, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
And
That's my take a dump face.
Who's the fifth?
Amari
guy?
Cooper was the last one.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
duh.
Yep.
But I thought about that going, man, we never get to do that trivia stuff anymore, so I'm going to throw one out at Ted.
That's a good
Sorry
idea.
it wasn't a better question. It's kind of a lame
That's a good
question, but
Thanks for.
I'm kind of a lame dude. 38, 17, 4 TDs for Cousins, 32-year extension for Mike Zimmer when he wins.
California Dreamer.
You're missing something, Drew.
Hey, I've been meow meow Viking cow. Hey, I've been pretty close on my score picks these last 3 weeks.
You have. So, with that, everybody, we'll see you Saturday.
Hey,
for the first
thanks for all the fun today.
For the first pregame show of the week. And then following the game, we go live with GMG in the Raw. But everybody, have a good weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy your favorite beverage, friends, and food. And go Vikings! Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.